What's going on? It's Wednesday night again, guys, and here we are with Squadron Live. I appreciate everybody being here, and I wonder if you're as cold as we are the last day or so. All of a sudden, it's snowing in Georgia again, and that's not really normal for Georgia, just in case you were wondering, but here in the last month or two, it's happened to us twice. Thankfully, most of the snow, at least around our house here in Ringgold, is already gone. And I say hopefully because when it snows in Georgia, everybody tends to lose their minds a little bit. We have probably one snowplow truck in the entire state, and every time it snows, they have to figure out where it's parked and how to get it cranked. So, nonetheless, the kids love it and they enjoy it. And because it doesn't happen very often, I kind of enjoy it too. Some of you guys that live up north and deal with it day in and day out, I honestly don't know how you deal with it. But then again, I guess you get used to everything, right? Anyway, I wanted to say hello to everybody in the chat tonight, or many of you, as many as I can anyway. Joseph, it's good to see you. And Danny, you guys were here early. I saw your chats come in earlier this evening, so thank you for coming and hanging out with us. And Danny, the 200 scale Fletcher from Trumpeter, it is due to release sometime in the next month or two. And of course, you know, us actually getting it always falls about a month or two after they actually release it. It takes some time to make that trek across the ocean, but hopefully we will have it sometime relatively soon. And the Dragon German destroyers, I don't know for sure. Dragon, we've talked about this a lot on the show. Dragon is reissuing so many items like all the time. It is kind of difficult to keep up with exactly what and when with them. But I know they're coming. I just don't know exactly which shipment they're going to be in. So good to see you tonight, Lawn Care Novice. And Ken's with us, and Mark from a frozen Chicago. Yeah, you guys, you're a little bit colder than us. And Randy, yeah, -8. See, we don't hardly ever, if ever, see a negative number in front of our temperatures here. If we do, I'm not going outside. So good to see you tonight, Derek. And Jeff is with us tonight. Good to see you tonight, buddy. And Rex and David, have any of the victory ships been sent out? Yes, David. In fact, all of them have, to my knowledge. If you have one on order with us and have not got it, send me an email and let me look into it. Because those, to my knowledge, all the pre-orders were shipped out. But you never know. So give me an email and let me look it up for you tomorrow. The voice of Bob. Good to see you tonight, buddy. And David coming to us from Florida. And Michael's here, and Carlos is here, and Tom is with us again. And Ken just got his victory. I hope you like the kit. It's a cool one. Let's see. Tom, can you spray your scale colors and primers over Vallejo paints? As a general answer to that, yes. And as more of a general answer, you can spray them almost over anything as long as whatever you're spraying them over is fully cured. You wouldn't want to spray it on top of something that's still drying. But then again, that's kind of a statement for any paint, not just ours. But you should not have any trouble mixing them and using them along with Vallejo. In fact, I've been working on a model, believe it or not. So X Plus is one of the brands that we represent, and their latest kit is the Red Sonja. I told you guys I've been working on it. She kind of looks weird. She needs some clothes and some more hair. But because we do not have metallic colors in our scale colors line, all the silver or metallics? I forget exactly which Vallejo color it was. But anyway, the silver colors are Vallejo, as well as her weapon. But everything else on here are the scale colors. I am not a very good figure painter, so my skin colors are not great. I am very much so looking forward to Randy Van Dyke's instructional video on how to use our scale colors paint set, because we have a very nice set that Randy helped us design as far as picking out the colors. And he's able to work magic with this little box and make figures literally come to life. I'm not there yet, but I'm looking forward to seeing his instructional video that he is working on for us as quick as he can. But I say that to say, use scale colors with Vallejo. You won't have any problem, or you shouldn't have any problem. If you do, I will eat my foot, I suppose. Michael, good to see you tonight, man. And yeah, Michael, we all have that problem. He's talking about starting kits and never finishing them. You should see my stash. I don't know if I have more unstarted kits or sort of kind of in process kits, but I think it happens to all of us. Let's see. And yeah, here's Jeff's response to your question about Vallejo. And he's talking about Vallejo not adhering to plastic, and that is true, but that kind of bounces back to what I said. Make sure whatever you're spraying it on top of, whether it's Vallejo or anything else, is fully cured and fully stuck to whatever it is you're spraying it on, plastic, resin, or whatever. Let's see. David's here, and Ed. David's using the paints. That's awesome. And good to hear that you like that. And Michael taking advantage of the final countdown. Yeah, you guys make sure and check out the final countdown deal. We added more stuff to it. You can see it on the homepage. Go to all products and final countdown sale. We added all sorts of new goodies to it this week, and some of the things that were still there from the leftover from previous weeks, we marked them down yet again. So 6 more pages full of goodies at what we hope and think are really good prices. So make sure to check that out. Let's see. I'm going to skip on down. I'll just give a blanket hello to everybody else, and I'll probably, pull out some more hellos here in a few minutes. Tom, are we dropping Hasegawa? We're not dropping Hasegawa as a brand that we will continue carrying in the future. It's just we've got some, and actually a lot of those that you see in the final countdown. They've kind of been hanging out around here a little bit longer than we would like. So a lot of the things in the final countdown, some of them certainly are brands that we don't carry anymore. But some of them are just things that they're time to move on out the door. And that's the situation with the Hasegawa kits. So I've got a couple of surprises tonight, I guess. And I want to bring on a guest real quick that I've got 2 guests here, actually. And the first one, I have to say, and perhaps I'm a little partial, but this is my favorite guest that I ever have on the show. He's only been here a couple of times, but let's say hello to my dad, Russ Lowe. Hey, Dad.
Hey, Brandon. How are you?
Good. Yeah, you get to be my favorite guest ever by default. But
it's only because your kids or your wife isn't on, but I'll take that.
Yeah, if I could get my wife on here, that would be pretty impressive, because I don't think she likes. Yeah, I don't think she likes the camera that much. I might could get Emmett on here sometime. Actually, Emmett's been on here once back when he showed off his was it the Iowa, either the Iowa or the Missouri big Lego battleship that he did. So he's been on here. But well, thanks for joining me tonight. Your dad, by the way, guys, Russ, is still holding down the fort in Ellijay. So that's the MMD headquarters is still in Ellijay, but I see that it's relocated to your office at your house.
That's where I work most every day if I don't come see you. Yeah. We didn't have a bit of snow here. I mean, I'm only 60 miles from you, but we didn't have any.
And it's really weird because my wife, Crystal, her mom lives, 10 miles up the road from you, and her yard
15, maybe 20, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she lives up in Blue Ridge, the next town over from Ellijay. Yeah, when you told me you didn't have any this morning, I thought that was kind of odd.
Yeah, not a bit.
Oh, well.
Hey, I can speak to that Fletcher question, a little bit to that Dragon question that came up earlier.
Sure.
Seeing how I'm the one that has to get this stuff, I got a little more updated information on the Fletcher.
Well, do share.
Well, of course, it was announced in December by Trumpeter. So there's always a 2-month lag if you go to their site and they give you a December announcement that almost always means we'll see it in February, which is true for the first round of the Fletcher. Now they've got at least, 2 more versions already announced, and they tell me they'll be 3 to 4 months, 3 to 4 months before they come back out with the next round and the next round. But I actually have to place my final pre-orders to them this week. So the first Fletcher, we'll have to nail down how many are we getting of this on the first run. And so that's this week. It'll ship at the end of February, maybe the first part of March, 6 to 8 weeks, depending on the Panama Canal, depending on everything that can go wrong. But we actually have our container with a lot of the Dragon stuff. It is actually approaching the Panama Canal. It's supposed to go through tomorrow, actually.
Good deal.
So we'll have that first week of March. It's amazing how long it takes to get from the Panama Canal just up to Savannah. So that's where that is.
The good thing about the Fletcher, then, that means we'll definitely have it in time to have it at the IPMS Nationals then.
Yeah, I would guess, let's see, March. We should have it in May sometime. So yeah, that'll be no problem.
Awesome. Good deal. Yeah, hope, and maybe by Nationals we'll even know a little bit more about which one of the, they've announced 3 Fletchers. Yes. Perhaps we'll at least know which one is next by Nationals, because at this point, unless they've told you, I don't know if Stevens or whatever the other one is. Yeah, Sullivan's. I don't know which one of those is next.
I don't have official word until it goes on their website. I usually get my information within a day or two. So when you see it in the middle of the month, like they just announced their February announcements for April a day or two ago, when you see that within a day or two, I'll get my pricing and then get to place my order at that time.
Okay.
So that's where that one is. And Dragon is interesting. Brandon, you've said it a couple of times. They're reissuing so many kits. I just counted how many are going to be released in February and March, and it's over 30. That's a lot of kits. Now, granted, that's probably mostly figures and mostly, figures and armor, probably split even. So just about everything is there. The Independence is the one ship that you, Brandon, have talked about.
Oh, the 350th scale one?
Yeah. Yeah. That one says a March release. And I've found with Dragon, if they say March, it might get delayed. In other words, this month it's March. By the time March rolls around, they may push it back another month.
Right.
And I can tell you why they do that.
Well, and you may be going there, but you told me this yesterday. Since we have the man here himself, can you elaborate a little bit on what you just told me about how Dragon handles some of their pre-orders? And what I'm specifically talking about is their 1/6 scale Sherman, the humongous 1/6 scale Sherman. Guys, they have announced that they're going to reissue, or they intend to reissue, this 1/6 scale Sherman. We have put it up for pre-order on our website. If you have any interest or desire to buy that kit at all, I would highly recommend you actually placing a pre-order with us, because of what we just found out, how they deal with their announcements. So Russ, you can kind of tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if all of them do it kind of like this, but Dragon even more so. So like I said, they've got 20 or 30 kits that they want to issue, and they'll put a date and they'll say, we're going to make this in March. Get your pre-orders in. So I'll send my pre-orders in expecting it to show up. And, many of you will ask, hey, when is this particular kit coming? When is this on some of the ships that didn't come quite as quick as we thought? And so I ask about the Sherman and we ask about the Independence. I think those were the two you asked me the other day. And, right now the Independent says that's a March release. And right now the Sherman says a March release in what I just received from them. So I asked him, I said, okay, this Sherman was earlier. And can I increase my pre-orders, or I'm already past? I placed an order based on what we had, and we've got a few more orders. I got some from some dealers, including Brandon, of course. And so I said, can I raise it? And then they answered, and I should have known it, but I didn't really think about it. And they said, we don't have a timing on this kit because we don't have enough pre-orders to justify running it right now. Now, granted, 1/6 Sherman is a lot different than 35th scale figures. I mean, I'm sure they can have some extras laying around, but I'm sure they don't want a lot of those big kits after they run unsold.
Right.
So at the moment, whatever we say on a date could change if they don't get enough pre-orders and they push it back again. So I believe they will run it, and I believe they will get the pre-orders they want at some point. I just can't give anybody a good date on that right now.
Yeah, so it's like, if you want one, I know a lot of times, myself included, when there's a new item that's coming out that I want, sometimes I pre-order, but sometimes I just wait till it comes in stock. It's like, well, I know that they'll have plenty. I'll just buy it when it comes in. Well, in light of this new information on how some of this stuff is done with Dragon, and like Dad said, perhaps some of the other companies to some degree, if it's something that you definitely want, perhaps go ahead and get a pre-order in, so that the manufacturer will perhaps produce it a little sooner than later. And Dad, didn't you say the train model companies used to do that back when we used to sell trains? They would announce like hundreds of things and then pick and choose what they actually produce based on their pre-order numbers.
Right. Well, this was part of the reason I got out of the train business. Of course, that was my hobby. And Brandon's talked about how I used to, I had a layout, and he built the buildings or helped me build the buildings. So when we got in the hobby business, I had to sell trains. That was just what I needed to do. I wanted to, because I liked it, and ended up with N-Scale. And Brandon, at that time, when we were at Free Time, he would do all the plastic models. I would do the trains, the die cast, and pretty much everything else but the models. And he'd have a pre-order get put up on his site, and 2 or 3 months later, here it comes. So I started doing pre-orders with N-Scale trains, and they would announce them, and it would just take forever. And the last one that I remember, it was on a Central of Georgia engine, and I had a local customer come in the store. Hey, they're going to put this in Central of Georgia. I've got to pre-order this. Fine. We got out of the train business. We had been out of the train business for 2 years. 2 years. And I get an email. Hey, we have your pre-order for these Central of Georgia engines. And I remember thinking, Brandon, I'm fixing to be back in the train business with these to sell, even though we've been out for 2 years. But I called the guy. Thankfully, he was still there. He still answered the phone. He says, oh, that's great. I'll be right down and pick those up. Yes, I still want them. But 2 or 3 years was really a long time. And it was the same thing. If they didn't sell enough to run a Central of Georgia, they just never ran it. And the pre-orders would sit there for years.
Well, hopefully that's not going to be the case with the Sherman.
I don't think it'll be anything like that.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I want one. But I only want one. So if y'all want one, I need you to put a pre-order in so we can get Dragon to go ahead and put this thing out. I think it would be my daughter. She's 5, about to turn 6, and she's all into Barbies. So I think G.I. Joe and his Sherman tank need to come for a visit. Hey, tell us about what really ends up happening, guys, is because before we took over Squadron and MMD out in Texas, it was one company, Squadron MMD. And even though he's my dad, I'm me. I mean, we work very, very close together. We share a warehouse, all that stuff. I still have my thing, and he's got his thing. But used to, what would happen was if a dealer wanted to buy something, they could. So what ends up happening is Russ's dealers will see something on the Squadron website, and they will just assume and hope that they can call up MMD or go into their website and buy it from them. And for a lot of things, that is true. I buy the vast majority of my inventory from MMD. But there's still some things that he doesn't fool with or can't or whatever. So I just go out on my own and figure out where I'm going to get it from. And we are slowly but surely getting out of that routine because it's you know it causes him a lot more emails and phone calls to explain why he can't sell them something. So I'm trying to work my way out of anything that he cannot offer me. One of the latest acquisitions for him to be able to offer his dealers, which was great, is Airfix. I had been buying Airfix outside of him for a while, but I was really kind of, pulling back a little bit just because it was causing him so much extra phone calls and whatnot that don't result in a sale. But you finally nailed that down, Dad. So, I mean, is that going to be a good thing for you? I mean, it's got to be. It's a great brand. They've got a lot of, especially now, they just announced so many new kits. So is that hopefully going to work out for you and make a few more of your dealers a little bit happier being able to get those to them?
Well, it should. Like you said, I get a lot of requests for Airfix because it is not as well distributed as some of the other brands. I mean, Tamiya, you can find that almost anywhere.
Right.
If you're a dealer. There are plenty of places that have it, but Airfix, not quite as much. And, it's not just because of me. Brandon, you're also happy because now all you have to do is walk over to my inventory.
Oh,
and pick
absolutely.
something up and sell it. That is except for planning. So, but it is a good thing because I would rather be able to, if we're going to promote a brand, I'd rather be able to sell it to to my dealers. Because like you said, they do say, hey, can you get this brand?
Right.
That is a very common question. Just like you asked Brandon, hey, can you get this? The dealers will do the same thing for me, especially on a brand that's maybe a little harder to get.
Yeah. Well, and they've announced so many good things this year. These new like the Saturn V and the space shuttle and the Artemis, those are all coming. This 48 scale Lysander has been very, very popular so far, and I don't know why it says add to cart. It's supposed to say pre-order. Well, it does there. But I mean, they've just got several upcoming kits that all look really exciting. So it's a good time for you to have picked those guys up for sure.
Well, it was just a good deal. It's just one of them. We've been waiting, and somebody told me this the other day, and I think it's true that a lot of people are contacting me and the vendors, and a lot of them wanted to make sure, that MMD and Squadron was actually going to make it. And I think after 3 years, there's a little more confidence and a little more, hey, these guys are serious, and we are. We want to do a nice job. It's a fun business to have, and we enjoy our customers and we enjoy the hobby itself.
Oh, absolutely. Let me get this pulled up real quick. I want to show this because a guy just asked about something in the chat. Bear with me. And I'm going to share this. It's probably going to be washed out because of how these pictures do. But where is Ken Clark? Says he's got a couple of Model Collect pre-orders that are getting fairly old now. And so the picture I'm about to pull up, but go ahead and speak on Model Collect.
No, go ahead, pull up the picture just in case you throw me a curveball here.
Well, it's the A12 Avenger 2. This is a kit that they announced along with everything else so long ago, and then finally we at least see what the box is going to look like.
Well, that was an interesting email because about the time you saw it, I get an email saying, hey, we're ready. to announce this, and they weren't sure what price they felt like they needed to sell it for. I think all the uncertainty, even though this is a, it's a new kit, we've got all the issues of the cost and everything. And they were just concerned that they may have had the price too high, maybe too low. So I said, well, I need a price. You were hammering me, Brandon. You said, I've got to get this up for pre-order. And I was figuring I would be ordering it, but he came back and said, we haven't figured out the price yet. Okay. So I should have that in a few days. It should be on our next, what we call a consolidated container with all the smaller brands. And that will probably leave port sometime in March, putting it here in May, probably a few weeks after the trumpeter shipment. This will come in.
Well, the good thing though is that the kit is actually produced, and it's just a matter of figuring out their price now. Because see, Ken has now said he's got the Avenger and the ox cart on pre-order, and what we have learned, Ken, and you will not see any pre-orders go up on our site for Model Collect. Now, I will post them on the site as coming one day, perhaps, with a picture with no price, but the actual ability to pre-order them, those will be far and few between with Model Collect now, because piggybacking off of the same conversation about the 1/6 scale Dragon kit, Model Collect, they were the first company that we found out takes that whole idea to the extreme. They float these ideas with basically no intention of producing them unless they get a lot of interest in them. So a lot of those kits that we have seen, I'm sure they would like to do them one day, but they've got to get enough interest. If you go to Model Collect's actual website, there's all sorts of stuff posted there that I don't know if we'll ever actually see. So when we saw this box and this kit earlier this week, I was extremely excited because that means it's actually done.
Right. Until I get a price, I don't know whether they've completed it or not.
Well,
so Brandon asked me this week when he saw it pop up wherever and said, hey, this is finally here. Do you have the price? I emailed, hey, we don't know what the price is. But if you will check sometimes with some of the eBay sellers that are typically not from the United States, and there was one, and I saw it within 2 weeks ago, I forget exactly which one it was, that I knew had not been released. I mean, I knew it. They had told me, we don't have it yet. We'll release it, say, another month ahead. And I said, well, of course, Brandon, you were wanting to promote it, pre-order, do a video, get a sample. I couldn't get it. And I said, I'm telling you, it's not available. And Brandon, at first, he wasn't sure he believed me, because he goes to eBay and he found 40 places you can buy it right now.
Yep.
But I know that kit has not been completed. But if you put a long enough shipping time on eBay, they are counting on them finishing it, delivering it, and then they'll ship it to you when it's produced sometime later. I suppose most of the time it works out. But if you'd have pre-ordered a 1/6 scale Sherman from Dragon and expecting October delivery because it was supposedly in stock, in that particular case, it wasn't. So Brandon's been a little more careful the more information we find out, to jump the gun too quick. And sometimes I'll get a price and they'll say a date, and then that moves again. Our European friends like Edward, Mini Art, ICM, and all the rest of them, when they say it's coming out on a particular month, it is rare that doesn't happen. And if it does, they've already told us, if ICM misses a date, it was the B26 last year. And they missed it because it took more time and more tooling. But we knew it months ahead. It wasn't like it's coming next month. Oh, sorry. Right. we're not going to make it.
Right. It's kind of like the Burma Jeep right now with ICM. That's kind of, last year it was the B-26 and this year it's the Burma Jeep. It's going to be fine, but every once in a while they have one that's a little bit different than they were expecting. But anyway, well, that's good. Good news on Model Collect as far as the A12 goes. Hopefully get those in. And that was the sprues for it, by the way, that I was just showing.
Right.
So that's what the kit's going to consist of. I don't know what it's going to include, if any, photo etch, or surely it'll have some decals, but that's what we know for now.
Yeah. So, yeah. Well, it's always a challenge to bring it in, and if I ever get it on a container or on a airplane or wherever it is, then the challenges of getting it here, and every day brings something new. It's fun, but it's always a challenge.
Right. Well, before I let you go, let me bring in my next guest so you guys can say hello, and then you can hang out with us as long as you want, or you can go. It's kind of up to you, but I'm going to bring Jeff in now. Jeff, how are you, buddy?
Evening, everyone. How are you?
Nice name there.
Yeah.
Nice hat, Jeff.
You like that hat? Yeah. I do. Styling.
I do.
Yeah.
Well, what's been going on? My rider backwards.
Oh.
My eagle's going the wrong way.
Oh. It looks right on here.
I had to mirror my camera because left is right.
That's
right
what I didn't do. I see.
You look right on here, or either that or I look wrong. I don't know.
Yeah. There's always got to be one of us going in the opposite direction.
That's right. That's okay. That's okay.
I got you. So what's been going on?
This is our first conference meeting of the three of us.
It is
a while. I never see you, Jeff.
Yeah, in front of a studio audience, nonetheless.
That's right.
But we have been I say we, me and the two dogs, have been extremely busy up here in sub-zero Wisconsin. This is today was the first day that it got above zero in probably a good week and a half. And it's just been kind of brutal, but it's a real good excuse to stay inside and work on model kits and set up printers. And boy, I'll tell you, the UPS guys do not like me having to deliver all those big boxes in this really cold weather. But I have completely revamped my workshop. I lost a whole lot of bench space. I used to be very proud of the fact that I had 28 feet of bench space to build my models. And I'm back down to about 12 because we had to reallocate space to the 3D printers that arrived. So we now have 9 printers that are running full time. And then the Franken printer, which is Brandon's big monstrous, that runs when we need it to run for really big subjects. So that one just kind of takes up a lot of space, but we've been, and there's a whole bunch of logistical things that go along. If anyone has ever done any 3D printing, you know that it's, you have to have good ventilation and things of that nature. So I've been building a manifold system to ventilate all of the printers outside so that I'm not stinking up the house and getting everyone upset with me upstairs. But we've been busy designing tracks and working on porting over the existing SC3D tracks, and we've been working on figures. We've been working on ship parts, and we've just been nonstop.
I understand your new main paint employee, Crystal, has been burning the candle at both ends. I heard she was still running paint way after dark tonight.
Yeah,
at least you don't have that now.
She's a trooper, I'll tell you, and of course, the boss is probably, kind of cracking the whip and making sure that she stays on top of things to meet with demand.
No, she's the boss.
I was going to say she's the boss.
I was waiting for him to say that, but
that's actually why I was a minute late getting the show started, and I was out there at the barn getting the latest edition, which is the Vampire's Dinner. Get you some dark red there, or you can have your flavor of Bigfoot hair, or if you don't need that, you might want some werewolf fur.
Is Bigfoot a thing down there? Because it sure is up here.
Oh man, we have
Oh
not
my
now.
gosh.
Dad does. 5 miles from his house, he's got the National Bigfoot Museum right on the highway.
I think it might even be the international one. I'm serious.
Oh yeah,
It's actually
it's a thing.
interesting. It's not large, but a guy that I know owns it, and he's done a nice job. It's very interesting, and I mean, Squadron used to be what 5 miles from it, but now
Yep.
it's a
Yeah.
trip from Ringo.
Yeah.
Yeah, it used to be right next to it was the pinball museum. So it was a fun little corner.
Matt Johnson is asking if the Bigfoot fur is an accurate color. Well, we did consult with the Jack Link's big beef jerky spokesman, and he kind of confirmed
Well,
that.
you know what? I need to go see. I need to go see Bigfoot Dave, as I call
Yeah.
him, down the street, and he can
Take him
tell
some
me how
Bigfoot hair.
close.
He can tell you whether it's accurate.
We're going to
That's
get a
true.
lawsuit. I know it.
Bring me a Bigfoot, and we'll decide if the paint is accurate or not. And until then, we'll just all assume that it is.
Well, I think we should offer it. If anyone ever can provide us a real live Bigfoot specimen, we'll give them a bottle of paint for free.
Yeah, there you go. We'll give them two. So before we dive into, I know what we're going to talk about with Jeff while we're all together. Let me pull this up. This is cool. So this is from Ed Groon, and we were going to wait until the March show and tell to show this, but he gave it to me in a nice PowerPoint that I didn't have to do anything except download it. So I thought, this is cool. It's fresh. Let's check this out. So you guys know, and Ed, if you're in here, you can tell us in the chat if I say anything wrong. But you guys remember last week or the week before, Ed was talking about the Titanic display, 196 scale, not 196, 1/96 scale. This thing is huge, and Ed and three other guys. Ed, you can tell me in the chat who was with you because I'm sorry, I don't know. I recognize the guys, but I looked at it for about 2 seconds before I started the show. So tell us who those guys are. But anyway, they were in charge of going and fixing this thing. Had some problems. They had to do some things to it, and they're the modelers, the experts. So they got the job, and we got some pictures to look at. So check this thing out. This is massive. If you
Bigger than
thought a
the
1/200 scale Titanic was big, check this dude out. And yes, it is much bigger than the Dora. I think the Dora could ride on this thing. Okay, Ed says the names are on the last slide, so good deal. Yeah, I'm going to make this thing full screen. So this is huge. Here we go. IPMS North Central Texas, that's Ed's club, was asked to repair a 96th scale Titanic model, part of a traveling Titanic artifact exhibition. That would explain why it needed repairs. It's a traveling show. So longer than 9 feet. That is just a big model. Partially uncased during our initial damage assessment. Okay. Wood, plastic, fiberboard, 3D printed deck fittings. All right. You needed to clean it. I can imagine the amount of dust that was on that thing. Broken rails, all sorts of other broken items. Oh, I see. Yeah, and you were not able to fix everything because you had less than 2 weeks to get it fixed. That should be plenty of time, Ed. Joking, obviously. Okay. Wow. Made all the way over in Australia. Not able to contact him. I guess that's why you guys are fixing it. And the model was built over 15 years ago. Wow, and it's literally toured around the world. That's awesome. Curved bow rail. Yeah, see, this is one of those cases that takes modeling to a whole nother level just because of the size of something like this. So Russ, Jeff, what do you guys think about this big thing? Are you just kind of speechless, or what are you thinking?
Well,
Can't imagine the shipping cost of one of those.
I've been involved with some projects of this scale, having done work for some defense agencies and some museums and things of that nature. And if you don't have a team of people, the project overwhelms you almost immediately. And what's really cool about projects like this, the stuff that we work on, 700 scale, 350th scale, that's micro modeling. And you can see in the photo, there's a big old hammer down there, and there's macro tools. There's big carpenter tools. One of the joys of working on something this big is that you get to run the full gamut of doing micro work and doing macro work at the same time. That is something.
Yeah. You don't really, we were talking last week about scale, and I had a 72 scale and a 48 scale B-24 side that I was showing.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't understand sometimes how big something is until you see it. In my mind, a 200, well, not in my mind, I mean, a 200 scale Titanic, that's a big model kit.
Yeah.
And this is roughly, give or take, twice the size of that.
Yep.
But you don't understand what twice the size actually means until you see it in person.
Right.
Because it's not just it's twice as long.
Yeah, it's not just one-dimensional.
It's times.
Say that again, Russ.
By the numbers, is 8 times as massive.
Right.
I believe because it's twice as long times 2 is twice as wide. That's 4. Twice as high. That's 8. So yes, twice is really 8 times the mass. I hope I'm correct on that, but I think I'm dang close.
Well, you're not far off, because I mean, most of us, or many of us, have seen, if not in person, you've seen pictures of the 200 scale Titanic, and that looks like a toy compared to this as far as size goes.
Yeah, true.
Wow. And this is the last slide here. Or excuse me, we've got the credits slide next, but this is the last pictures we've got here.
Somebody asked how much it weighed. I thought that's an interesting question.
Okay.
I don't have any idea.
First of all, Ed's given us the exact size on this thing. So 12 times 196 is 1 foot 1/8 inch to the foot. Ed, do you have any idea how much this thing weighs? Bill is asking. And here's Ed's crew. Let's see, Mark Wilson, Paul Cassett, Ed Groon, and Richard Winston are the guys that were in charge of this project. We were offered free admission to the exhibit and a swag bag from the gift shop. Well, cool. Well, I really hope that you guys had fun doing this. I know that you didn't have long to do it, but that's one of those things that you don't get a call every day to go work on a 9-foot model. So the fact that they asked you guys says something about your modeling skills. So I'm sure that they were pleased with your work. Well, I don't think we're going to see a model of that from Trumpeter anytime soon in that size.
No, probably not.
And like Dad said a minute ago, shipping is going to kill us if we do.
That's right.
Wow. All right. Well, Jeff, you have prepared a few pictures for me to show.
Yeah.
I have. We can pull this. So you might have seen, guys, the last week, our thumbnail for the show was had a Gerald R. Ford in the background. Tonight you saw some tanks. I'm kind of thinking I'm liking this subtle hint of what the evening theme may be based on the thumbnail image that I use. I don't know how long I can keep that up, but we'll see. So tonight we wanted to talk a little bit about armor. because we've got an AMPS show coming up this weekend in Atlanta, in conjunction with the Atlanta Figure Society's show. So tanks and figures this weekend. Good time to talk about, now, Jeff, that we've kind of got the paint line kind of running on its own, so to speak. Which, by the way, we launched, I think, 24 new colors today that you guys can check out. I'm sure we'll look at a few of them here in a moment. But now that that's kind of running, you were talking earlier about getting 3D printers set up. So we had a 3D print shop here in Ringgold, and you've come down a couple times and set things up, showed us how to do things. Of course, we've done 3D printing in the past, but it all kind of worked out to where we kind of sent everything up to you, and you're just going to do things from there, at least for the time being. But now that you're able to focus on that rather than passing the paint project off to us, walk us through a little bit about what you've been doing, how you got started doing 3D stuff, specifically your tracks. And I think we got a couple pictures through here to look at some of the hopefully soon upcoming products that we'll be offering.
So the whole thing started, and again, I have to, I have to blame Trumpeter in a good way, of course. Trumpeter was responsible for me launching the paint line because I had a 200 scale Trumpeter kit and nothing to paint it in with. And the same thing happened with the 3D printed tracks. I had a Trumpeter, and actually it's in the Squadron retail store now. It's in the little museum there. It's a Geschützwagen. It's a German paper Panzer. I shouldn't say paper. They actually built it. They didn't complete it, on a King Tiger chassis with a 17 centimeter gun. And the rubber band tracks that were in the kit just didn't cut it for me. And it frustrated me because I went out and started looking for aftermarket tracks. And because it's a stretched hull, you can't use a single set of tracks. You have to buy two sets of tracks. And it was really a frustrating project for me. And then one day I was sitting at the workbench and said, wait a minute, I have a 3D printer. What am I doing? So I got into the books and found a set of line drawings for King Tiger track, and I made a set of tracks, and they fit and everything. I kind of cut my teeth on learning how to do it because I had no experience with 3D engineering or 3D design, prior to this. And I showed all my friends, and all my friends said, "Oh, can you make me a set of these? Can you make me a set of those?" And the next thing I know, I have 42 SKUs and running printers. So it again, it was one of those things that I didn't anticipate the success of the line, and it's really kind of it's blossomed into a nice product line. I've had some good success with them. Modelers have had a lot of positive feedback and responses, and so now it's just a matter of picking a subject, gathering all of the kits that are applicable to that subject. In the photo that you see here, this is a Panther track. I can design it to fit 3 different kits, or I can design it to fit all of the kits. So that's where a lot of the engineering and things like that come into play. And I've been having a blast with it. This is the fun part. The developing and the prototyping is the fun part of actually making all this work.
All right, I'm gonna move over to these next pictures. What are we looking at here?
Well, people ask me a lot, how do I get the information or where do I source my materials when I do a set of tracks? And there are 3 different distinct ideologies and methodologies that I use. The easiest is finding an original track, such as this Ostketten, and 3D scanning it. Nobody can argue about the dimensional accuracy because you're scanning an actual piece of equipment. And then you do a little bit of work. You clean up the 3D scan. You work on the track journals. That's the openings for the track pins. Clean up the details a little bit, and then you work on tweaking them to fit whatever kits they're applicable to. And you do that. The beauty of 3D is that you can manipulate the drawing. So you can make that track wider. You can make the track journal openings for the guide teeth wider or smaller, narrower. And before anybody gets upset, we're talking, in some instances, 1/100th of a millimeter. So if I make a track, the opening for the guide teeth, if it's 0.032 and it doesn't fit, I make it 0.035 and it fits. Well, the 3/100ths of a millimeter, if anybody's going to complain about that, that's the difference between it fitting 1 kit and it fitting 5 kits. That's the easy way. And then obviously go into museums and measuring surviving examples, things like that.
Right. And Jeff, let me show them one thing real quick, because, a lot of times these guys will ask me, sometimes, hey, what's a 3D printer look like? And one night I brought one in here just so people could see. If you guys have never seen a 3D scanner, it's quite simple. That's all there is to it.
That little guy right there.
Now, the magic is not necessarily what I'm holding in my hand. The magic is what you do with this, which is kind of the case with any tool, I would say.
Yeah. The second approach that I often use, and I'm, especially if it's a rare subject or information is hard to obtain, I will reverse engineer a kit track. In a lot of instances, if the kit has rubber band tracks, they usually provide injection molded individual links to hang on the turret, or spare links that go. I'll actually take that link and take measurements off it and start out with a solid block and start removing everything that doesn't look like that it belongs on the track. There's an old modeling joke. And it came out in the 1980s, and it was a wooden model of a Chrysler K car, and it was a block of wood, and the instruction said remove anything that doesn't look like a Chrysler K car, and it's funny, I guess, if you're a modeler, but it's the same approach that I take. 3D design is nothing more than the manipulation of solid objects. By creating voids or adding material. So if you have an understanding of what the original part is and how it's designed and how it's made, it's pretty easier to it's pretty easy to kind of manipulate the tracks to get them to work. And then lastly, the third version is you build from scratch. You start right at the very beginning and get yourself a set of line drawings and a bunch of reference photos like I have here. And you just start designing the part. Then you print your prototypes, and then you start scaling them to fit, multiple kits.
Right. Well, Jeff, we got a couple questions I'll bring up real quick, and a couple of these I know how you're going to answer, so I will direct you a little bit. Brian's asking, will you do this track? And it's kind of like we talked about with paint, the sky's the limit on what paint colors we can do. And I think that's also the case with what tracks that we can do. But talk to us a little bit about how do you go about deciding, you said you went from nothing to 40 something SKUs. In your mind, how do you determine what am I going to do next as far as a set of tracks goes?
Well, there's a couple of different approaches that I have to take and things that I take into consideration. And first and foremost is that the plan is to sell these. So the plan is to, make a living doing it. Oh, look, there's Dr. Modelstein. See, I told you he was working for us. Look at that.
He looks much too young.
Well, he is doing time travel.
He had to shave.
Yeah.
Literally measuring the tracks.
Measuring the tracks. But where was I going with this? You have to do the things that are going to sell.
Right.
And I said that with paint. You know, you can mix a run of olive drab and sell all of it, or you can mix World War I Italian mountain troop uniform green and you're going to sell 2 bottles.
Right.
So it costs the same amount of money to develop the olive drab as it does the mountain troop green. But at the end of the day, what are you going to sell? And this harkens back to the same complaint that I get from modelers constantly. Why do we need another P-51? Why do we need another B-17? Why do we need another Tiger tank or another Sherman? Because they sell.
Yeah.
And so the first vehicles that I did were Tiger, Panther, King Tiger, Sherman, T-34, and KVs. And I can't keep up.
Yeah. Well, we call those home run projects. And,
yep.
For me, I always go back to the Blue Ridge models, and it's all things that I personally want to do, but you have to balance the things that you want to do because you want to do them with, let's do a P-51, make a bunch of money on it, and then we can gamble that money on something that may or may not work. Yep. And if it works, great, you do another one. If it doesn't work, you go back and do another P-51, make some more money, then try it again. So, the sky's the limit, really.
One of the things that we have to remember, I think, and this harkens to the larger industry as a whole, and I think Russ can chime in on this as well because he's dealing with things in bulk. We are the tip of the spear when it comes to this hobby, and I don't mean that because we win contests or we're in magazines or we do it for a living. We're the tip of the spear because we're the guys that are using airbrushes and photo etch and resin and doing some scratch building and buying paint that is historically accurate and all of these fancy things. There are literally hundreds of thousands of modelers that are out there who don't know we exist. And they don't know about IPMS, and they don't know about model contests, and they don't know about photo etch and resin and 3D printing. So that is who the market is actually driven by. It's driven by this anonymous mass of people that are buying things that are familiar to them. P-51s, B-17s, Tiger tanks,
Titanic.
Spitfires, Titanics.
That are less than 96 scale.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you make a good point, Jeff, and there's another thing that's right in the middle of it. Let's say you're a manufacturer and you're in the Czech Republic, or Czechia, as I think it's referred to now, and you want to create a USA subject. If you do something so obscure that you can't get an importer to bring that even into the USA, your sales are going to really be bad. So they have to, if they're overseas and they're doing a market that was primarily Europe, maybe they're in China or Japan, they've got to get distributors to take it on. So there's even that choke point right there before the modeler, the retail modeler can even get it. Now, granted, internet has changed a lot of that because there's always ways to get it if you want it bad enough. But, not everybody wants to spend, what was it the other day, Brandon? You said several $100s to get a Ford shipped to Australia.
Oh, it was. Yeah, he wanted it bad though. So, but
yeah.
Oh,
and that's one of the things that people lose track of, at least from a retail perspective, is that you can spend $1 million to develop a tooling for a brand new kit, and if it's a popular kit, it's going to sell, and you're going to make your money back and hopefully make a profit to fund your next project. But if you make something that is obscure, you're not going to recoup those losses because nobody's interested in buying that obscure, rare, one-of-a-kind kit. Not in the numbers that we need in order to perpetuate the process. And I know Matt, Qatar is selling Spitfires and 109s, and they're doing a great job, and they're selling because people know what they are. Wingnut Wings did some absolutely beautiful stuff, Matt, but where's Wingnut Wings today?
Oh.
It's unfortunate. They were, I believe, the pinnacle of injection molded plastic kits. I built a number of their kits, and beyond an enjoyable experience, how well engineered they were. But and I'm looking back at I'm doing Brandon's job here. Brian, we do have T54E1s, and since you are a Sherman guy because you knew what T54E1 with duckbills is, I'll throw this at you real quick. T41, T48 worn, T48 new, T49, T51, T54E1, T54E2, T56E1, T62, T66, T74. Those are all of the Sherman tracks that will be coming shortly as we ramp up production.
Yeah, if P-51s and B-17s are the most popular airplane subjects, Shermans and Tigers are probably the most popular tank subjects. So you can put two and two together to figure out what the first releases of tracks are going to be. So
and I had no idea that there were that many versions of tracks that went on Sherman tanks. And I build armor. I don't claim to be any kind of an expert or anything, but suddenly I'm getting calls to do different types of Sherman tracks. And I said, well, wait a minute, there's more than one. Oh yeah, look, there's 2, there's 3, there's 4, there's 5, there's 11, there's 11 different types of Sherman tracks. And that's just on the VVS side. And when we get into HVSS, there's another 3 or 4 T66, T80, T80E5, that are done for the HVSS stuff. So yeah, that's where we're going. And people have this misconception that that we're magical elves living in a hollow tree, and this stuff just magically appears. There's hundreds of hours of design work that go into creating something like this and making it what I like to consider to be a bulletproof product. And we're dealing with production manufacturing in 3D. If you 3D print a Dungeons and Dragons figure or something like that, you're not necessarily worried about mechanical tolerances. But when you're putting 400 links into a bag and 400 pins into a bag, you have to make sure that every single one of those pins fits every single one of those links. And that requires a lot of quality control and a lot of attention to detail and a lot of engineering that I, had to learn the hard way, because I just thought it was going to be easy. Just press a button and boom, there's a set of tracks. It's not
Jeff,
that easy.
Keeping up with Brian and his questions, I pulled this picture back up because he asked something that, you talked about designing the tracks to where they would fit this, each kit. So the fact that, you were a little worried about, people hearing that you may have to change the size of the for the tolerances and everything, but you only have to do that because the kits require it. So if the kits require it, then the kits accurate. Who knows? But Brian asked, would it not just be easier just to do a sprocket instead of using the kit part? So, I am sure you have thought about that, but why do we use the kit part instead of a part that you've designed?
Structural integrity is probably, one of the reasons. The injection molded plastic part is going to hold up a lot better than a 3D printed part when you put stress on it. We've all broken drive sprockets and idler wheels off when we've put rubber band tracks on that were too small, and the same can be said for 3D. But at the end of the day, especially going back and looking at this Panther, I'm trying to remember, the one on the left, I believe, is a Meng kit. The one in the middle is a Dragon kit. and the one on the right is the Tamiya kit. All three of those tanks, all three of those drive sprockets have different dimensions. Now, that being said, the dimensions are fractions of a millimeter. Everyone's really, really close. But the difference between 1 and 3 might be a half a millimeter. Do I make 2 sets of tracks and say this track is specifically for this brand of kit? Or do I make 1 set of tracks that will fit 3 different kits by adjusting the tolerances a little bit? And again, the big thing that I come up with when I'm designing tracks, fitting them to existing kits, is how it fits the drive sprocket.
All right.
And in looking at this photo, you'll notice there's no air gap between the track and the rim of the drive sprocket. If you can accomplish that, then you know that you have got the perfect fit. And it'll fit everything else on the model. It'll fit the road wheels. It'll fit the idler, because the drive sprocket is kind of the key master.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Well, it all works out. We're going to have some of these with us this weekend at the AMP show. And moving along to our last little slide here, this is just a little sample of some of the other stuff we've got coming up in the top right. We got ship model stuff coming. The entire Blue Ridge Models line will be relaunched and revamped and added to in a pretty massive way over the next few months. The figures here, 35th scale figures, just all sorts of stuff that we've got planned that you will start seeing show up on the website over the coming weeks. And we're pretty excited. We got all sorts of goodies in the works, and hopefully you guys will get a kick out of everything we've got cooking for you. So,
yeah. I mean, I ask folks to be patient. You know, there's a learning curve that's involved. You know, when we made this transition over, we completely changed not only the printers that we were using, but the company that, you know, we went from using Anycubic printers to using Elegoo printers. So all of those files have to be ported over and redrawn and reset up and then prototyped again. So that's
yeah, it was probably my fault. I found a printer that I thought was really nice, and Jeff couldn't argue with me. So
no, well, it doesn't do any good. But I'll tell you what, they are spectacular printers. They're fantastic printers.
I'm looking forward to you guys seeing some of the parts off there. This guy, let me jump into a couple other things, Jeff, before we wrap up this evening. This is Mini Art's new RSO, and they announced it a couple months ago, but they are now up for pre-order. So you guys grab this up. It's going to be really cool. I've seen the test shots and the prototype builds. That's going to be awesome. And Jeff talking about being a little patient with us. I agree. And the guys are, and we certainly appreciate that. But we intend to roll out a few things each week. And this week so far, we've got 24 new colors added to the line, all sorts of stuff. Specifically, we wanted to make sure and finish up the entire range of armor related colors, so that we can have those with us at the AMPS show this weekend. And thanks to my wife, that was accomplished about an hour and a half ago. So all that's going to be on display in Atlanta, along with some other fun colors that we ended up getting done. The clear coats, they're finally ready. They're done. You can get flat, semi-gloss, and gloss. We've got one of the washes somewhere in here, the black wash, that's ready to go. So, you know, each week we're going to try to have something new from our proprietary lines, and hopefully we can keep that going. So, what do you think, Dad? You got anything else for us this evening?
I just better go get some things on pre-order, I suppose.
Yeah.
All good. Y'all keep your end going. I'll do my part.
Just drop me a line, Russ, and tell me what you need, and you know,
all of it.
I'll have my people call your people, and we'll make it all happen.
Right. And I do vote for one track that fits more models. I can imagine us getting the boxes mixed up and shipping a Tamiya kit track for a Ming kit. So having less numbers, that'll make it a lot easier over here.
And when you guys see these in person, and if you have all three of those kits, for example, buy one set of tracks and test them, and you're going to say, "Oh, that's nothing." You wouldn't even know if we hadn't told you. It's that minor. So
I mean, we're talking
a
100th of a millimeter. In some instances, I think the biggest discrepancy that I've got in any of my designs is 3/100ths of a millimeter.
Mm.
If anyone's going to complain about 3/100ths of a millimeter, and you don't see it because it's on the inside of the tracks, so all the exterior stuff is still the same. It's the dimensions on the guide teeth on the inside of the track, so you don't even see that part anyway.
Well, it's going to be good, and it's all going to roll out soon. And you guys just stay tuned, and we'll see how it goes. Well, we're going to come to the show this weekend. You guys come see us, say hello. My brother Jared is going to be with me. It'll be me and him, and we're going to bring a lot of stuff. About 2 or 3 hours ago, I found out that I'm going to be bringing a lot more stuff than I thought I was going to be bringing. So you guys come check it out. I'm going to have all of our scratch and dent stuff that we've been saving up over the last year. I don't know why, but somehow or another, we just decided that this show is going to be where we come unload all of our scratch and dent stuff. So come get some good stuff at some good prices, and it should be awesome.
And you're going to have about 30 sets of tracks available.
Yeah, I have one each of a pretty good selection of what will be to come. So you guys can check that out. And
all the armor colors and lots of good stuff.
And for everybody that can't be at the show this weekend, I hope to have some time during the show to take some pictures and videos, and perhaps I'll show you guys those next weekend or next Wednesday night. So I guess that's going to wrap us up for tonight, guys. I'm going to say good night, and we'll see everybody next week.
I hope you guys thaw out, he says with a grin.
Everybody have a great week. Thank you so much.
All right, guys. Have a good evening. All right, guys. That's it for tonight. Thank you so much for hanging out. As I say all the time, I always look forward to Wednesday nights hanging out with you guys. And you never know what we're going to get into. Heck, sometimes I don't even know what we're going to get into until about an hour before we start. So next week, I'm sure it'll be the same. But I do have some cool stuff planned for the future. Not necessarily next week or the next, but I've got some things that we're trying to work up that might, be a little bit of a change of pace and be interesting. So we'll just see how it goes. And that's all I got for tonight. So y'all have a good evening. Take it easy. And we'll see you next week.